We have our 2026 Men's and Women's Royal Rumble winners. The first match has been made official for WrestleMania 42, and the cracks are deepening within the Judgment Day. All this and more in this episode of This Week in WWE, What Mattered. This week I'm just going to do a very quick whistle-stop tour of SmackDown because at the end of the day this was just the go-home show before the Royal Rumble, which is really what we want to talk about. As you would expect, a lot of the show was building up to the Royal Rumble matches. For example, there was an 8-man tag team match in the main event of the show, and there were a lot of spots in that match of people getting thrown over the top rope. A typical WWE cliche before the Royal Rumble just gives Michael Cole a chance to say, if that happens on Saturday, so-and-so will be eliminated. Carmelo Hayes successfully defended his United States Championship against Rey Fenix. Again, it was a very good and entertaining match, but I can't help but feel now that the Open Challenge is starting to get a little bit formulaic. Don't get me wrong, the matches are always fantastic, and we could definitely be in a worse place. We've absolutely been in worse places with the mid-card championships. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining too much, and I'll be honest, it's probably more of a nitpick than anything else, because we are getting great matches every week, but it does feel like now we need to have a bit more of a storyline wrapped around the US title. One segment that I found particularly interesting on SmackDown was when Damian Priest went to see Nick Aldis to see if he was going to be in the men's Royal Rumble match, and Nick said although it was tricky, he did manage to get him a spot in the match. And the reason I find this really interesting is because on the previous episode of Monday Night Raw, Adam Pearce was not able to get Finn into the match because the match was already full. But that'll do for SmackDown. Let's move on to the Royal Rumble, which is what we all really want to talk about. To open the show was the Women's Royal Rumble match, and we started off with Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss as entrants number 1 and 2, where we continued the storyline of can the tag team partners work together in the match, or will there be a point where they inevitably turn on one another? Well, ultimately in this match, Charlotte Flair did actually eliminate Alexa Bliss, but this was clearly unintentional, although it's not clear whether Alexa felt this way. One of the big returns in this match was the return of Nikki Bella, who's been off TV for a few months now. She got a good reception, but then the biggest return was arguably Brie Bella, who returned later on in the match, which is her first match in WWE since the 2022 Royal Rumble. Despite the god-awful entrance theme, Brie Bella got a massive pop. You could see the Saudi crowd doing the Daniel Bryan yes chants. Everyone was really happy to see her, and it was a really nice moment, regardless of how you feel about the Bellas. At number 30, we had Tiffany Stratton return, who's of course been off TV since she lost the WWE Women's Championship to Jade Cargill back at Saturday night's main event a few months back, and it was a strong showing as you would expect. However, I am surprised that we didn't get Bianca Belair in this match. She's been out now for a long time with a knuckle injury, and it seems a little bit absurd that she's actually been out for this long with a knuckle injury, but I can only assume that it's a lot more complicated than we originally thought. Either that or she's taking an extended break. WWE might have plans to bring her back at a further show. They might even bring her back at WrestleMania, but I was expecting Bianca to return here. One of the standout performers in the Women's Rumble was Lash Legend. She eliminated many people, including I believe both of the Bella Twins and Charlotte Flair, after she'd been in the match for almost an hour. She ultimately got eliminated herself by Rhea Ripley, but this was a very good performance from Lash, and it really shows that WWE has a lot of confidence in her and sees her as a future star. Now, Rhea Ripley's elimination was gnarly because Raquel Rodriguez threw her onto the ring apron. It was one hell of a bump, but then the big surprise after that is that Liv Morgan eliminated her own Judgment Day partner, Raquel Rodriguez, much to her dismay. For the final 3 of the Women's Rumble match was the returning Tiffany Stratton, Liv Morgan, and Sol Ruka from NXT, who had an absolutely brilliant performance, and I also thought probably the best gear in the match as well that really fit with her gimmick considering the constraints they've got performing over there in Saudi Arabia. The final part of the match saw all 3 women on the ring apron outside of the ring. Sol Ruka went to hit the Soul Snatcher, but Tiffany Stratton pushed her out of the way and eliminated her, which left just Liv and Tiffany, and then Liv Morgan ran across the apron, hit Oblivion onto Tiffany Stratton and thrusting her off the apron onto the floor, and crowning Liv Morgan the 2026 Women's Royal Rumble winner. I'm really happy to see Liv win this match. She's probably the best character worker in the women's division, and it's a long time coming for her to win the Rumble. She's been a runner-up twice, she always has a strong showing in the Rumble, and also I'm a little bit extra happy because she was my predicted person to win the match. Next up we had the career-threatening match where Gunther was facing AJ Styles in an attempt to try and retire him. And it was confirmed by the commentary team during the entrances that Gunther was going to be in the Royal Rumble match later in the evening, regardless of the result of this match. I know Gunther's been getting some stick online recently, but honestly, I don't understand why. I think he's a great character. The match that these two had was brilliant. Storytelling was beautiful. Gunther was beating down AJ. As we all know, his matches are very physical, very violent. He kept beating down AJ Styles, but AJ would just not give in. After vowing that he was going to make Gunther tap out, AJ tried to lock in the calf crusher, but Gunther was able to evade it. He did manage to lock it in during the second attempt, but Gunther was able to reach the ropes. Third time AJ tried to lock in the calf crusher, he did, but Gunther was able to reverse that into a sleeper hold, and of course that sends everyone into an instant panic because of what he's done in the past and in the careers of both Goldberg and John Cena with this manoeuvre. There were two really exciting near falls where AJ hit a springboard moonsault followed by a Styles Clash, but Gunther kicked out at 2. And to harken back to the match on Raw that Gunther won cheaply by cheating behind the referee's back, Gunther was able to evade the referee's view and do a heel kick right into the groin of AJ Styles, hitting an illegal low blow, followed by a powerbomb, but this time AJ kicked out at 2. There was a point in this match where it got quite uncomfortable. Gunther kept hitting AJ with chop after chop after chop, absolutely pulverising his chest, and the referee was actually backing Gunther off and kept checking with AJ whether he wanted to continue. And there was a nice continued theme from John Cena's final match through to this match as well, as AJ kept getting caught in the sleeper hold, but he was able to fight out multiple times. This, for me, brought back serious deja vu from John Cena's final match, particularly as I was there in Washington in attendance. Every time Cena got caught in that thing, my heart sank, I was panicked, I was screaming for Cena to not give up. And he did fight out of that multiple times, which brought the crowd to their feet. It was a really great moment. I was so emotionally invested, and it really brought me back to that match here. But in the end, just like Goldberg, just like John Cena, AJ succumbed to the sleeper hold. He passed out, the referee rang the bell, and his career is over. It's still unclear whether this is a full-on professional wrestling retirement or whether this is just going to be a WWE retirement. As I speculated in last week's video, the specific wording that AJ used in his promo made me think it's more likely to be just a WWE retirement, and maybe he shows up at TNA in a few weeks or months. But post-match was very emotional. Gunther was pretty quick to get out the ring and let AJ have his moment, where the crowd really showed their love for the phenomenal one. It was a really, really sweet moment where AJ was taking off his gloves, just like when Cena was taking off his wristbands and leaving them in the ring. AJ was taking his gloves off, but then halfway through taking them off, he stopped. He put them back on, velcroed them on tight, and then did his signature pose to the crowd, showing the AJ Styles Phenomenal One logo, and the crowd erupted. It was a really, really nice moment. But importantly, he didn't take off his gloves. Because he did that and showed the logo, and we had a really nice moment with the fans, he then walked out and left the arena with his gloves still on. I might be reading into this a little bit too much, but maybe that's a small little indication that his full-on professional wrestling career is not over. Then we had the undisputed WWE Championship match between champion Drew McIntyre defending against Sami Zayn. And there were two interesting stats going into this match, where Sami was 0-11 against Drew in singles competition prior to this, but he'd also never lost in Saudi Arabia, so one of those records was going to be broken. For me, this was probably the weakest match of the night, although it was by no means bad. Perhaps not the weakest, but maybe the least memorable, which I think is understandable in the grand scheme of things when you consider the other matches on the show. Sami and Drew still had a really good match here. There was a point where Sami went for the Helluva Kick, but Drew was able to duck. He then hit a Claymore Kick and went for the pin, but Sami was able to get his foot on the rope to break the count. At one point, I was convinced that the referee, Charles Robinson, was going to get hit with the Helluva Kick because Drew was in the corner and Charles was just stood right in front of him, and it looked perfectly like Sami was inadvertently going to hit him with the Helluva Kick, and then we were going to see some shenanigans. But to my surprise, Charles got out of the way. Sami did hit Drew with that Helluva Kick, but he was able to kick out at 2. Later on in the match, Drew McIntyre brutally put Sami Zayn through the announce table with a powerbomb. But in the end, during the finishing stretch of the match, Sami Zayn was running from corner to corner across the ring, going for the Helluva Kick, but Drew came exploding out of his corner and hit a clean Claymore to take Sami out. But he didn't go for the pin. He backed right up into the corner again, waited for Sami to at least get up to his knees, and then Drew hit another Claymore to put him out cold and pin him 1, 2, 3 and retain the undisputed WWE Championship. This was absolutely the right decision. There's no way I wanted Drew to lose the title on his first defence, and it means we can tell this bigger story long term. Sami has lost yet again to Drew McIntyre, to the point where he's finally lost as well in Saudi Arabia. This is just creating more of a hill and more adversity for Sami to have to overcome to finally become a world champion. Although part of me did worry that Sami was going to go on and win the Men's Royal Rumble match, which we'll come on to now. Perversely, the most entertaining part of the Men's Royal Rumble match was probably the beginning. So the ruler Obafemi was number 1, the first entrant in the match. We know he's coming to the main roster soon, but he's still a free agent. He is yet to sign with either Raw or SmackDown. And as we already knew, Bron Breakker was number 2. And as Bron was approaching the ring, he got attacked by a hooded figure who beat him down, threw him into the steel ring steps, and then threw Bron into the ring. The match started. Obafemi eliminated Bron Breakker straight away. This was a massive shock. Paul Heyman was going mental on the outside of the ring. I couldn't believe that Bron Breakker had been eliminated just like that, especially as he was my prediction to win the whole thing. So I had a complete mixed bag of predictions. I had Liv Morgan, who won, and Bron Breakker, who was literally the first person to be eliminated. But we go back to the masked figure trope that Triple H absolutely loves, which we've seen quite a few times recently, of course, with Becky Lynch and Clash in Paris, the original Masked Man who got involved with the Vision, Austin Theory, and now this third character. As you'd expect, Obafemi had a fantastic performance in the men's Rumble match. We saw Rusev come back after a long time off TV. Oba made short work of him. He eliminated Rey Mysterio, he eliminated Solo Sikoa, and he eliminated Matt Cardona, making short work of pretty much all of them. The number 11 spot saw the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes enter the match, who of course needed to win the Royal Rumble to get his rematch against Drew McIntyre to try and get his title back. One of the funniest segments in the match was we saw El Grande Americano enter the match, and then the next entrance straight after that was the original El Grande Americano, where he came out, they stood in the ring, did the typical Spider-Man meme, and yeah, it was quite funny, it was quite entertaining. I know some people get the knickers in a twist about things like this, say that Rumble spots were wasted or whatever, but we have to remember, pro wrestling is a mixture of everything. There is a place in wrestling for humour, and I found this particularly fun. Number 14 was a surprised entrance where we saw the Titantron come up with Powerhouse Hobbs and then change to Royce Keys. I believe he's a wrestler from AEW. I'm personally not familiar with him myself, but they obviously put Powerhouse Hobbs on the screen so people knew who it was, and it seems like he's going to go by the name of Royce Keys in WWE. Entrant 21 was LA Knight, where he made a beeline for the Vision, who of course put him out of action for a long time, with Bronson Reed hitting a tsunami on him on top of a car. But LA was able to get his revenge as he did eliminate both Austin Theory and Bronson Reed of the Vision. The next entrant was then the Beast, Brock Lesnar, who was flanked by Paul Heyman, and it was Brock who ultimately eliminated Oba Femi, who was focusing on trying to eliminate Logan Paul at the time. Now, one of the weakest points of this entire match was actually Brock Lesnar's elimination, because we saw Jey Uso come out to do his entrance. He came through the crowd doing his yeeting, no problem with that whatsoever. Seemed like that entrance was taking a while though, but then for some reason the camera cut back to the ring and we saw Cody Rhodes and LA Knight eliminate Brock Lesnar whilst Jey Uso was still making his way to the ring. Like, I'm not particularly angry about this. I'm not going to get on the internet and scream and say how terrible it was, but it was an absolute piss poor decision. I really don't understand what the point of putting Brock Lesnar in the Royal Rumble match was if you're just going to eliminate him during Jey Uso's entrance. I assumed if they're going to put Brock in the match, he's going to have some big spots and ultimately be eliminated by the person that would then set up his feud for WrestleMania. I appreciate this might be a bit tricky because I'm thinking ahead a bit here, but I believe SummerSlam's in Minnesota, which is Brock Lesnar's home state. There's a lot of speculation that Brock's going to retire at SummerSlam, so WWE are going to want to keep him strong up until that point. So maybe they don't want Brock to be eliminated by someone like Oba Femi, for example, who had a great showing, because if Oba eliminates Brock and they go into a WrestleMania program, you're kind of stuck because you don't want Brock to lose before going on to retire at SummerSlam, but you also don't want Oba to lose. But having him get eliminated by LA and Cody was perfectly fine. It's just the manner in which he was eliminated. It made no sense and just made a mockery of putting Brock in the match in the first place. And this also puts Jey Uso in an awkward position. I mean, obviously don't know what was planned and what wasn't planned. Maybe Jey took more than the allotted time for his entrance and that's how this happened. We're never going to know. But Jey gets a lot of stick anyway. I know he's getting great reactions in the arenas, and let's be honest, that's what really counts. But he does get a lot of flack online. His main event push last year just didn't work, and that's why he's quietly now been slotted back into the tag team division with his brother. And he's not a bad worker, he's not a terrible superstar. I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon and say Jey Uso is awful and one of the most overpushed superstars of all time. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But there are just little things that I think are unnecessary, and it's just making more and more people slightly dislike him now. This being a prime example. We saw Brock Lesnar, a massive star, whether you like him or not, get eliminated from the Royal Rumble match, and all you can remember about it is that freaking Jey Uso was yeeting in the background while it was happening. Then we had Jey run back his entrance during the match. Again, I don't really have an issue with the whole running it back gimmick. I get it, the people in the arena love it. I've been there in the arena when he's done it, it is great, but it can get a little old. Like, doing it on top of the War Games cage, I think undermined the whole brutality of the War Games match. And doing it in the middle of the Royal Rumble as well, I think is just a bit silly. Number 26 saw the entrance of the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns, who interacted with Jey very early on in the match. He was trying to get Jey to run it back. Jey seemed like he was about to go for it, but Roman hit him with a stiff uppercut just to remind him that he's the Tribal Chief and he's here to win the Royal Rumble match and main event WrestleMania. Unfortunately, there were no massive surprise entrants in this match. There were a lot of entrants from AAA, and at number 30 we saw Gunther, the ring general, and he was noticeably limping on the way to the ring during his entrance. Which, as soon as I saw that, I thought, okay, this is a clever kayfabe way to ensure that Gunther believably doesn't win the Royal Rumble. Cody Rhodes went for a Cody cutter on Gunther, but Gunther moved out the way and he actually inadvertently hit Randy Orton. That may well be planting seeds for their feud that needs to happen at some point, the one that we've all been clamouring for. But later, Cody Rhodes was ultimately eliminated by Drew McIntyre, who wasn't even in the match. He made his way to ringside, hit Cody with a Claymore, which took him out of the match. It's quite clear here they're building this big feud between Drew and Cody. It's potentially going to be a triple threat with Jacob Fatu as well, but Drew is really being proactive here and trying to stop these people getting a shot at his championship, as opposed to letting them earn that opportunity and dealing with them at the time. We saw this with him attacking them both at Saturday night's main event, and again here at the Rumble with him eliminating Cody. That then took us to the final four in the men's Royal Rumble match, which was Gunther, Randy Orton, Logan Paul and Roman Reigns. After a few minutes, the final two in the match were Roman and Gunther, and this really started to set the doubt in my mind now that Gunther was going to lose this thing. I was really starting to think that Gunther was going to retire AJ Styles and then win the Royal Rumble match both in the same night. And although I didn't prefer that idea at the time whilst watching the match, I didn't hate it. I was like, if you're going to make someone the ultimate heel, he's already retired Goldberg, Cena, AJ, if you have him go and win the Royal Rumble that same night, he becomes the ultimate final boss heel. Although Gunther did get Roman Reigns in the sleeper hold at one point, Roman was able to hit a spear and throw Gunther over the top rope to win the Royal Rumble match for the second time in his career. So the Tribal Chief is back, OTC1 is back, following his comments on the Pat McAfee show, where he basically said that he left for 2 years, left it open to others to fill the void, and he claimed that nobody really has, so it's time for him to come back and take his spot at the top of the pyramid. He shows up and wins the Royal Rumble match. And then after the show had finished, the cameras cut to outside of the stadium. We saw live pictures of Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and then what must have been the longest and most expensive pyro show I've ever seen in my life. I sat there watching it with my mate. I couldn't quite believe how long it was going on for, and then it got to the point where it was just, I'm going to sit here and watch it to the end just because I'm just curious as to how long this thing is going to go on for. And I'm pretty sure that the pyro show went on for about 10 minutes. Before I move on to Monday Night Raw, if you are enjoying this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you could support me by subscribing to the channel, liking this video, leaving your comments below. Absolutely anything you could do to support me and the growth of this channel would be greatly appreciated. The more support I get from you guys, the more videos I can put out there, as well as this weekly series that I'm already committed to. Monday Night Raw opened with Bron Breakker trashing the set and demanding that Adam Pearce comes to the ring. Paul Heyman got on the mic and made a pretty valid point that Adam Pearce has to approve every single superstar's visa who's travelling to Saudi Arabia, yet he has no idea who the master man is. Pearce appeared at the top of the entrance ramp. There was a line of security in front of him to stop Bron coming straight at him, and Adam said, "You know what, I'll do you a favour. I'll do you a favour and let you keep your job," after a piss-poor performance in the Royal Rumble, which absolutely set Bron Breakker off. I'm really enjoying the storyline between The Vision and Adam Pearce, and I'm curious to see where it goes. It feels like this started off as typical heels, Paul Heyman, The Vision, the management are against us, the management don't like us, but it seems like Adam Pearce has really leaned into this and now is actually being quite honest and like, yeah, I don't like you. Amongst the chaos, LA Knight appeared and attacked both Austin Theory and Logan Paul with a steel chair before making his way out through the crowd. And a bit later in the night, we saw Paul Heyman ask Adam Pearce backstage for a match between Bron Breakker and LA Knight, but Adam Pearce denied this request, stating that he'd already had LA Knight escorted out of the building. AJ Styles' music hit, and for a brief moment everyone got very excited before they saw Gunther come out and mock AJ's entrance. He got down, did the pose like this, and then just raised his arms. The pyro went off. Honestly, it was beautiful. It was great heel work from Gunther. I absolutely love the fact that he's an absolute rage-baiting arsehole, but can actually back it up. He cut a short promo before being attacked by AJ Styles' former tag team champion partner, Dragon Lee. This just ended with Lee getting laid out as Gunther hit him in the head with the ring bell, locked him in the sleeper hold outside the ring. Just as he was leaving, he then came back. He put Dragon Lee in the sleeper hold again, but this time over the ring ropes, and suspended him outside of the ring until he let go and he just fell to the ring apron and onto the floor. A quick but interesting segment saw the War Raiders in the ring, presumably for an upcoming tag team match, but then Obafemi's music hit. The Ruler made his way to the ring and just absolutely laid out the War Raiders. And this is a formula we've seen WWE do many times, right? Especially with a new guy, a big guy. They want to feed jobbers to him and make him look strong during consecutive weeks to introduce him to the main roster audience. However, Eric and Ivar are both huge guys, and Obafemi was throwing them around like they were bowling balls being tossed at bowling pins. And at the time of this recording, Obafemi is still a free agent, so we don't know if he's going to end up on Raw or SmackDown. There was then a quick pre-taped video package from Finn Balor where he basically explained he's been nothing but respectful during his time in the wrestling industry. However, he feels really disrespected now and he wants the World Heavyweight Championship. We then saw a brief segment from the Bella Twins with Nikki coming out first, followed by her returning sister Brie with that bloody awful entrance theme. This was a really quick promo and really not one of the best, but basically they said what you would imagine. They're happy to be back. They claim to be the original women's tag team and that they want the WWE women's tag team titles. I don't particularly love the Bellas. I don't hate them either, but I don't really have that much of an investment in them. However, I totally understand why WWE are doing this. There is a generation of people in the audience that absolutely love the Bella Twins and connect to them, and it does make sense that they would come back to try and become women's tag team champions. But what's a weird problem that I think WWE have got themselves into now is the women's tag team division has needed some real tender loving care for quite a while, right? For a long time the division was an afterthought. The tag teams were thrown together and often for the purposes of furthering a single storyline between the two tag team partners when they inevitably break up. However, WWE haven't just doubled down or even tripled down or even quadrupled down on the women's tag team division. They've gone all in on the women's tag team division. It's absolutely freaking stacked, and they've just added the Bella Twins to it. Don't get me wrong, from a technical point of view, probably the worst team in the division, but from a star point of view, they're right up there. Now, I'm not complaining that this division is good, because it's damn good, it's really good, but there's actually too many teams in there now, and it's causing the mid-card titles to suffer. Thankfully, the women's Intercontinental title has been on Becky Lynch. I know she dropped it briefly to Maxine Dupree, but Becky's been a really good champion. She has that star power, and she's making that title feel important. However, let's be honest here, the Women's United States Championship has just been in a barren wasteland pretty much ever since it was devised. And with all these women now crammed in the tag team division, I can't help but feel it would be best to pull a handful of them out and let's put some meaningful storylines into the Women's United States Championship picture. Later in the night we saw a match between Penta and Bronson Reed, which actually had LA Knight interfering. He hit a BFT on Bronson Reed on a steel chair outside of the ring, which caused him to lose by countout. And this is just further building the distrust of Adam Pearce by Paul Heyman and the Vision, who at this point must be convinced that Adam Pearce is the head of a conspiracy against them. We then saw the return of Dirty Dominic Mysterio, the Intercontinental Champion and the AAA Mega Champion, who of course introduced his girlfriend, the 2026 Women's Royal Rumble winner Liv Morgan, who then shortly thereafter was introduced her Judgment Day partner Raquel Rodriguez, who was due to face Stephanie Vaquer shortly for the Women's World Championship. Critically, Raquel asked Liv why she eliminated her from the Royal Rumble match, and you can see Liv was a little bit taken aback, but was still quite manipulative and pushed back and said that she already had a championship opportunity, which she was about to have on Raw, and now that Liv won the Royal Rumble match, she also has a World Championship match. And a win for one in the Judgment Day is a win for all in the Judgment Day. You could see that Raquel Rodriguez wasn't particularly happy about this, and she did actually ask Liv to stay backstage during her match, just so that her victory against Stephanie Vaquer would be all that more sweet because she did it all by herself. Obviously the reasoning that both women gave here are complete BS, but they're both trying to save face, and you can see the distrust now starting to build between Liv and Raquel. Then we saw the entrance of the Women's World Champion, Stephanie Vaquer, and unfortunately, I have really bad news for you guys. She got Def Rebelled. Yes, WWE have done it again, and they've replaced a perfectly good entrance theme with generic rock theme 101. This was particularly disappointing for me. I do like Stephanie's now old theme, and I've seen her talk about it before on a podcast where she campaigned to keep her music when she moved from NXT to the main roster. She spoke to Shawn Michaels and really asked him to help her keep her music, which obviously she's been able to for a while, but now she's been Def Rebelled and she's been lumbered with a crap theme. This world title match was of course a street fight, and it was particularly violent, featuring all the weapons you would expect in a street fight. We saw steel chairs, tables, kendo sticks, and bins, or trash cans as you Americans would say. One of the big story points of this match was Raquel Rodriguez targeting Stephanie Vaquer's previously injured left ankle, which of course from a kayfabe perspective was very smart for Raquel to do, and from an audience perspective it really created that doubt in my mind whether Stephanie was going to retain or not. This was a really entertaining match between these two women. It wasn't without its mistakes. There were a few little problems here or there, but you can't really expect anything less in a street fight, and some of them were totally not their fault. For example, at one point Raquel Rodriguez had wedged a chair between the ring ropes in the corner of the ring, and you could see a proper pulling back with force. It looked pretty well wedged to me, and then as she went to walk off, the chair just fell to the outside of the ring. There was a point in the match where Stephanie Vaquer was able to give everybody in the audience what they wanted, where she hit the Devil's Kiss on Raquel Rodriguez. She actually hit this on a steel chair, rolled outside of the ring, and then hit it on top of the steel ring steps as well. Despite being asked to stay in the back, Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez came out to try and help Raquel win the match, with Liv Morgan handing the women's world title belt to Raquel Rodriguez. However, Stephanie Vaquer was able to neutralise both of them, with Roxanne Perez actually going through a table on the outside of the ring, and she was able to successfully defend her women's world championship. After the match, Liv hit Oblivion on Stephanie, and while she was laid out on the floor, she held the women's world championship high above her head, which is maybe giving us some indications as to who she's going to choose to face at WrestleMania, and also build that further distrust and frustration between her and Raquel. And the main event segment of the night saw the OTC, the Tribal Chief, the Men's Royal Rumble winner Roman Reigns, come out to the Philadelphia crowd and ask them who they'd prefer him to pick to face at WrestleMania. It was quite clear that the Philly crowd preferred Drew to pick CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship, which meant that Punk then came out shortly afterwards. A particularly good point of this is Punk actually walked straight past Roman Reigns, addressed the camera straight away, cut in a short promo on Finn Balor, and you could just see Roman's bemusement in the background. You could see the disrespect in his face. That Punk had entered the ring, walked straight past him and addressed the camera first and not him. And what else can I say about this back and forth between Roman and CM Punk? It was absolutely brilliant. I would highly recommend you go and watch that promo. Go and find it online and watch it. It's a good 7 or 8 minutes of these two just going back and forth on the microphone, and it slowly builds and builds. And there's so much of a story to tell there between Roman and Punk. It's quite clear why WWE wants to go in this direction for WrestleMania. I'm not going to cover everything that they both said, as I just wouldn't do the promos justice, but CM Punk said that Roman followed in his footsteps by having a long World Championship reign with Paul Heyman by his side, and that although his title reign was longer, it doesn't mean that he did it better, and that he held WWE hostage during his 4-year championship reign. Punk also stated that choosing Drew McIntyre would be the easy way out. Roman pushed back against Punk's points, particularly about Punk being the hard-working world champion that's travelling from country to country, by saying that he took a 10-year vacation. He'd be trying to get his dates in too if he'd been gone that long. He then went on to say, who do you think approved CM Punk's return in 2023? When he wanted to come back to the company, he said, who do you think they came to? It was me. I'm the one who said it was okay. I'm the one that made the promise to Paul Triple H Levesque that he was going to be okay, and that he was the reason Punk was even back in the company in the first place. This segment ended by Roman Reigns saying, the reason I'm picking you to face at WrestleMania is because I hate you and I have always hated you. So there we have it. We have our first match confirmed for WrestleMania 42. It will be CM Punk defending the World Heavyweight Championship against the Tribal Chief and the 2026 Men's Royal Rumble winner, Roman Reigns. For those of you that stuck around, thank you very much for watching this week's video. I do appreciate it was longer than the normal videos are, but of course there was more content to cover this week with the Royal Rumble and then the Raw following, and I even pretty much skipped over the Go Home SmackDown as well. As I said before, anything you can do to support me or the channel would be greatly appreciated. Please let me know your thoughts below. Did you enjoy the Royal Rumble matches? Are you happy with the winners? Are you happy with the surprises? What do you make of Brock Lesnar's elimination? Are you happy that we're getting Roman Reigns versus CM Punk at WrestleMania, or would you have preferred Roman to pick Drew McIntyre? Let me know below. Let me know below and get involved in the conversation. But that's it from me this week, so until next time, see you later.